The last Likan, the war that devoured the world. War had changed. This was no longer a battle of nation versus nation. It had become something far beyond politics, far beyond territory. It had become a fight for the very survival of humanity. Northern front, winter, temperature, minus 34 degrees Celsius. Station Hector 12, hidden deep within endless snow-covered forests, it served as a secret base for one of the darkest military projects ever conceived. The entrance was guarded by autonomous turrets, the perimeter littered with mines. On no map did this place exist. Even to its own, it was known only as Zero Zone. Within the darkness of its hallways, lit only by the red flicker of emergency lights, a squad of soldiers in black armor marked SOD, Special Operations Division, moved toward the central chamber. Dr. Reed, are you certain the subject is stable? Captain Wayne approached a glass dome, underneath which something massive was breathing. As stable as it gets, the doctor replied coldly, eyes on biometric data. But it's not human. It never was. If you release it, no one will be able to control it. We don't need control. We need victory. Wayne stared grimly at the creature inside. We're losing ground on the southern front. If it can break through, let it. The fogged glass obscured what lay within, but a low growling hum pierced the silence. It knew. It knew it was being sent back into battle. Reed stepped back. It's not just a weapon, it's a curse made flesh. Exactly why we need it, Wayne muttered with a grim smile. 300 kilometers away, on the southern front, Hydra Division was surrounded. But the enemy wasn't ordinary, they were something else. Genetically enhanced units. Stronger, faster, regenerating. Soldiers called them one name, Claws. We've got 2 hours, max, reported Lieutenant Miller, crouched behind broken concrete. If reinforcements don't come, we're dead meat. What reinforcements? Sergeant Davis scoffed. This whole op's a damn trap. They knew these things were here. A piercing howl shattered the air, followed by a storm of gunfire. Screams erupted. They're inside the perimeter. A voice crackled over the radio, then drowned in static and gurgling. And then, a flash lit up the sky. From above, something black descended like a demon. The earth shook. Dust rose in clouds, and from within the storm of ash, it appeared. Massive, towering, claws like blades, eyes like molten silver, glowing in the dark. What the hell is that? Miller whispered, frozen as the creature tore into the enemy, ripping them apart with terrifying speed. Look at the tag, Davis murmured. It's one of ours. Indeed. On its black armor was a military dog tag, a memory of a past life, when it was still human, when it was a soldier. Target confirmed. Subject eliminating hostiles with maximum efficiency, Wayne reported coldly to command. But something's wrong. His behavior, it's becoming erratic. He's the result of our experiment, replied General Sloan's voice. We knew the risks. If this wins us the war, then let the whole world burn. The battle became a massacre. The subject, designated Likan-7, moved like a storm. Ripping, tearing, crushing, unstoppable. Fall back, Miller shouted. Let him deal with them. But Davis didn't move. He stood, frozen against the wall, as the creature turned its head and looked right at him. Jesus, it's looking at me. Likan stepped closer, each breath white mist in the frozen air. Then, it spoke. A guttural, distorted, beast-like voice. You were at Raqqa? What? Raqqa, Afghanistan. 8 years ago? You abandoned your squad. Davis's face turned pale. Who the hell are you? I'm the one you left behind. And in the next second, everything turned red. All that remained of Davis was a shattered pile of bone, blood, and mud. Likan-7 stood above it, breathing heavily. His shoulders heaved, claws trembled, dripping thick, dark blood. The wind carried the stench of death across the battlefield. He lifted his head and howled. Long, low, furious. The howl echoed for miles, heard by all, friend and foe alike. Back in command, silence. Even General Sloan's hand shook, tightening around his cigar. "What the hell was that?" an officer asked, staring at the radar. "That wasn't a relocation. It was a signal, a warning." "A call," Reed whispered in the darkness beside the monitor. "He's calling the others." "What others?" Wayne snapped. "You said he was alone." "I was wrong," Reed murmured. "He's not just an alpha. He's the progenitor." That night, distress signals flooded all fronts. Communications went dark. Patrols vanished, outposts slaughtered. The few survivors who managed to send anything back all said the same thing. They weren't human. They moved on all fours. Then on two, they tore us apart. They howled. They had military tags on, but they weren't people. By dawn, the southern front was gone. Wiped clean, no survivors, only ash, debris, shattered vehicles, and claw marks in the earth. At the center of the carnage stood him, Likan-7. Around him, 7 more figures, massive, beast-like, scarred, armored. Their eyes glowed as one. "You did it," one of them whispered, stepping closer. "You awakened us." "We are no longer dogs of war," Likan-7 growled. "We are hunters." They turned their eyes to the horizon. To the east, the enemy's main base. A command center. A fortress city. Their next target. At the Defense Council, panic reigned. "We're losing control. These things multiply like a virus. We need to initiate the Black Protocol immediately. That will wipe out everyone on the southern front. And if we don't, humanity will fall." General Sloan stood up and slammed a folder onto the table. "We created him. We gave him blood, strength, intelligence. We wanted the perfect soldier. And instead, we made a god of war." He turned toward the monitor. Drone footage showed Likan-7 tearing through the enemy's forward lab. A heart ripped from an officer's chest, right in front of his comrades. A drop of blood smeared the lens. Then, black screen. Prepare for the apocalypse. In that same lab, beneath a pile of torn bodies, Likan-7 dropped to one knee. In his claws, a single dog tag, Major Connor M. Ricks. He clenched it tightly. And for a moment, something flickered in his eyes. "I used to be like you," he whispered, gazing at the lifeless soldier. "Until I learned the truth." A young sergeant approached one of the other Likans, trembling. "Who are you?" The beast tilted its head. "We are the final version of humanity." Meanwhile, across the world, inside the Orpheus complex, scientists argued in panic. Project Xerxes, the last of the genetic programs. Their desperate countermeasure. But no one knew. Xerxes had been created using Likan-7's DNA. Only more unstable, more ravenous, more violent. He was kept in cryostasis. But he already smelled blood, and he heard the howl. He smiled in the dark. "Brother, did you call me?" 3 days passed. In that time, 7 garrisons vanished. 4 bases. 1 experimental biolab, gone. Radio contact lost simultaneously. All frequencies drowned in a distorted howl, emerging from the depths of static. The same tone across the globe. Everyone who heard it felt something primal. Fear, dread, and the hunger for blood. Underground Command Center Helios. 600 meters beneath the Alaskan mountains. The War Council had gathered. "They're not just wiping out our bases." An analyst held scorched film from a destroyed lab. "They're collecting genetic material. They're not attacking randomly. They're evolving. On the battlefield." General Sloan stared at the map. Red zones expanded every hour. "Where is Likan-7 now?" "Last confirmed location, the ruins of Base Ariadne." "He's not alone, sir. We've detected at least 15 similar biosignatures." A pause. "One of them flew." The room froze. "Flew?" "Yes, sir. Wings, mass. Approximately 700 kilograms. Genetically unstable mutation. He attacked from the sky. The cameras caught him. ripping a VTOL aircraft in half. Far away, in a ruined metropolis drowned in rain, Likan-7 walked through blood-soaked puddles among the wreckage of Veritas-Gen headquarters. Others followed, some on 2 legs, others on 4. One had claws the length of machetes, each of them once human, once soldiers, now cursed. "We're close," one of them growled. "Only one line of defense remains. They've activated Xerxes." Likan-7 froze, his heart pounded. That name awakened something buried, an ancient fear. "He must not awaken," he snarled. "If he does, it's the end, even for us." Then we descend to the heart of their world. Inside Orpheus Lab, a young soldier named Jake stood before a sealed chamber. Label, Project Xerxes. Class, Omega Red. "You really think this thing will stop them?" he asked his superior. "It's not a thing," Lieutenant Han replied. "It's the only one who can kill Likan-7, because he's his twin, only different." An hour later, the chamber opened, and he stepped out. Tall as a mountain beast, skin black and smooth like obsidian. His eyes, no glow, just endless black. He didn't growl, he didn't roar, he was silent. "Xerxes, can you hear me?" Dr. Han asked, his voice shaking. "You were made to stop him. You must destroy Likan-7. The creature lifted his head. "I must not. I want to." Night fell over the ruins of Chicago, and at last the two forces met. Likan-7 sensed him before he saw him. The wind shifted, the air grew heavy. The world went silent. And then, from the ashes, he emerged. Xerxes. They stood face to face. "You were never meant to live," Likan roared. "I don't live, I exist. For one reason only. To kill you." Their clash was an explosion. The first strike shattered the ground. The second sent buildings crumbling. Claws met claws. Howls shook the skies. Their blood painted the walls. Other Likans stood around them, watching. None dared interfere. This was no fight. This was the collision of beginning and end. Above them, a drone flew. In the war room, the operator recoiled in horror. The camera caught the moment. Xerxes ripped open Likan's chest. But he didn't die. He shoved Xerxes away and began to change. His body shifted, blackened, expanded. He was becoming something else. His voice, no longer human. "You've awakened something you can't comprehend." Likan-7 transformed. His muscles swelled, claws extended, fangs split his jaw. Skin turned jet black, etched with crimson markings like ancient runes. His once silver eyes now glowed crimson. This was no awakening. This was a primal reactivation. Xerxes stepped back. "What are you?" For the first time, his voice trembled. Likan-7 raised his head. His roar thundered through the ruins. "You were made to stop me, but I'm not a weapon. I am evolution. You must vanish. I must destroy the creators, and you are their final creation." With a feral howl, he lunged. Their collision unleashed a shockwave, leveling nearby buildings, hurling cars into the sky, turning glass into dust. They fought like ancient titans. Each blow an earthquake, each roar a nightmare. Meanwhile, so on the edge of the ruins, a recon unit of 3 survivors watched the battle unfold, holding their breath. "Do you see this?" one of them whispered. This isn't war anymore. It's divine extermination. We'll never beat them." Suddenly, one of them lifted his binoculars and froze. "Hey, did you hear that?" In the distance, scattered across the broken districts, tiny lights began to flicker. Dozens, hundreds, marching. "They're coming!" one soldier rasped. "Their pack, all of them." In command, chaos. Every monitor lit up in red. Across the northern continent, mutated Likans launched a synchronized attack. Some moved underground, digging tunnels like moles. Others flew on wings made of twisted flesh. Some fused together, becoming a single grotesque collective organism. It was no longer evolution, it was biological revolution. Destroy everything, Sloan barked. Full annihilation protocol. He slammed the control. Project Catastrophe. 13 nuclear warheads set to purge the infected zones. We have no other choice. We can't stop them with anything else. But the signal never sent. The screen flickered. A shadow appeared. A face. A Likan armored in black. His voice sliced across every frequency on Earth. You want to erase us? Then erase yourselves. We're already inside your walls. And then, behind the guards in the war room, eyes ignited. Red, glowing. Likan-7 had sent the signal. Internal infection. Everyone ever vaccinated, everyone who had received the supposed cure, carried the seed. And now, it bloomed. They all awakened at once. Somewhere in the center of Chicago, Xerxes collapsed to his knees. Blood gushed from his chest. He was powerful, but no longer equal. Why? Didn't you die? He gasped. Because I'm no longer alive, Likan-7 growled. I am Will. You think you've won? You're nothing but an experiment. No. Now I begin again. Likan stepped back. His eyes burned. He raised his claws and drove them into Xerxes' heart. He tore it out, held it, and slowly crushed it in his hand. A surge of energy burst upward, a bioplasmic field that shot into the sky. For a few seconds, the world paused. Even the wind, even death itself. Then came the awakening. All across the globe. Those once tied to the project felt it. Scientists, soldiers, civilians. If their blood had ever touched the serum, they heard the call of the Alpha, the call of Likan-7. Thousands began to change. Trains derailed, power plants shut down, cities drowned in chaos. On the surface, darkness gathered. Likan-7 stood on the rooftop of the ruined Veritas Gen Tower, gazing into the distance. A shape approached behind him, human in form, a woman. Once, she was Dr. Claire Norton, the original creator of Project Likan. You know what this will lead to, she whispered. You realize, once you destroy them, you'll become humanity's final enemy. He turned to her. For a brief moment, pain flickered in his eyes. I was human, but they killed him. What remains won't be their world, but it will be an honest one. And what will you do now? She asked. I'll awaken them all, and then I'll unleash the beast. 15 days later, Xerxes was gone, but the world was shattered. Governments had collapsed. Global networks dead. A third of the planet was consumed by biomass. The new creatures operated as one, connected by instinct. The pack. They needed no orders. They were a single mind. They were his children. Cities burned. Humans fled underground. Subway tunnels, caves, underwater shelters. Civilization was ash. And from that ash, howls echoed. Wild, ancient, unrelenting. Even those untouched by the virus began to lose their minds. The last bastion of mankind, Bastion Zero, was hidden in the Antarctic plateau, too cold for the virus to spread. Here, 4,000 survivors remained. Scientists, soldiers, leaders, desperate for a solution. A massive display showed a global map, a holographic Earth, 70% under new control, 20 infected and unstable, 10 neutral or dead. We've lost, Admiral Garrus said flatly. This isn't war, it's a reset. They're not mindless, they're replacing us. We have Project Icarus, said Dr. Carrie Sands, a scientist in glasses. A strike from orbit, a planetary cleanse. We burn everything. That's genocide, another officer said, and we don't even know if it'll work. We don't have a choice. If we don't strike, we'll be gone within a month. Garrus was silent. He stared at the map. Among the red zones, one single dot moved. One silhouette, Likan-7. At the same time, Far across the plains where Moscow once stood, a new fortress had risen. Black, twisted, built from rubble, metal, and flesh. They called it the Hive, the central nerve of the swarm, and at its core stood Likan-7. He no longer wore armor. It had become part of him. His claws, blades the length of forearms. His skin hardened into an organic carapace. His face covered by a bone mask, pierced only by glowing eyes. Surrounding him stood hundreds, the oldest, the strongest, the purest of the Lycans. One of them, a massive beast with charred fur, stepped forward. The eastern wastes are cleared, the last survivors forced underground. And the south? Lycan growled. The final sanctuaries in Brazil have fallen. Humans no longer resist, they pray. Lycan slowly rose, his voice, a thunderous drum echoing through the walls of the fortress. They were never gods. They only wore the name. But now, they finally know what it means to fear the night. From the crowd, another figure stepped forth, spine twisted, enhanced. Once a man, now something else. General Rendell, the only human who surrendered and willingly became part of the New Age. "We found her," he rasped. "Dr. Claire Norton. She's alive, and she knows where it is. The Omega Vault." Lycan's eyes ignited. "Where?" "Antarctica. Bastion 0. Silence, all around, and it froze. "Ready the army?" Lycan growled. "We go for the last beating heart of mankind." Bastion 0. Dr. Claire Norton stared at the maps, desperate. She knew they were coming. She knew he would come for her. Because she still held it. The last capsule containing his pre-infection DNA. She could end it, or make him unstoppable. "If he reaches this material," she said, turning to Garrus, "he'll become something humanity won't even have words for." "And if we destroy it?" Garrus asked. "He'll know. He'll feel it. He'll find another way. We have to strike first." They came. Thousands. Tens of thousands. From beneath the ice, from the sky, through tunnels. They were everywhere. One bastion outpost exploded. A winged Lycan dropping a living bomb, fused bodies packed with biodetonators. Likan-7 stood atop the ridge, gazing at the white wasteland ahead. "This was their final home," he growled. "Let it become our hunting ground." He stepped forward, and the slaughter began. The battle raged for 7 hours. The last plasma drones destroyed. Heavy lasers overheated. Soldiers torn from trenches. They fought like demons to the very end. One regiment detonated their own reactor to stop a mutant wave. It was like setting off a grenade against a titan's chest. In the heart of the complex, Claire Norton stood before the capsule. Behind her, chaos. Garrus lay bleeding on the floor. "If he breaches this room, we detonate the core," he rasped. "This ends here. He won't get her." Claire placed a trembling hand against the glass. Inside, a gray pulsing liquid. The genetic code of Likan-7. Of who he was before. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And then, the door opened. He stood there, massive, shadowed, eyes like 2 drops of hell. He stepped inside, and the world seemed to fade. Even time stood still. "You still fear me?" he growled. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered. "I'm afraid of what you've become." "I became what you made me. Only now, without chains." "You can still stop," she said softly. "There's a part of you that's still human." He stepped closer. His claws scraped across the metal floor. "She's dead, and you killed her. Then end it. Kill me." But he didn't move. He froze. His eyes flicked toward the capsule. He stepped to it, placed his claw against the glass. "Too late. Even she can't bring me back." Suddenly, an explosion. Somewhere deeper in the complex, the fail-safe system triggered. "You don't understand," Claire whispered. "You're not the only one. There are others." "Where?" he roared. But the earth shook, and the ceiling collapsed. The destruction of Bastion Zero was felt across the continent. Shockwaves echoed through the ice like a planetary quake. Dust, concrete, screams, swallowed by darkness. Bodies of soldiers and scientists scattered beside frozen chunks of mutant flesh. And above the chaos, he stood, Likan-7, his skin cracked, black blood oozing from the fractures. He breathed fast. His chest rose and fell, hard. He wasn't invincible, but he wasn't defeated either. The capsule survived. It lay at his feet, cracked, but intact. Likan-7 knelt down, pressed it to his chest, and froze. Inside, something was changing. The biomass began to pulse. He could feel it. It was responding to him, as if something within him had triggered a reaction. "What are you hiding from me?" he whispered. But before he could touch the activation switch, a sound echoed through the ground. Not a roar, not a gunshot. Something older, colder. A deep humming signal, rising from the depths of the earth. "No," he rasped. "That's impossible." Above him, the cracked ceiling began to glow faint blue. And then, protocol, archetype, activated. Thousands of kilometers below the surface, in the deep crust of the planet, far beyond the reach of man or beast, something ancient awakened. Entire complexes, buried beneath ice and stone for eons, began to hum. Holographic symbols flared to life. Chambers began to count down, and in the darkest of caverns, capsules opened. But they did not contain humans, nor mutants. They contained the ancients. The Likan project had not been the first. It had been a replication, a poor imitation. These chambers held the originals, biological entities created millions of years ago, designed as the planet's final defense. Long ago, Earth had faced extinction, and in response, she created predators, primal guardians, to eliminate all threats. They were known as the Threshold Keepers, and now they were awake. On the scorched ice of Antarctica, in the crater where Bastion Zero once stood, a fissure split open, and from it, darkness rose. Literal darkness. Creatures emerged, grotesque symbiotes of metal, bone, and flesh. They dripped with corrosive bioslime, their limbs crystalline and jagged, their faces smooth, without eyes, their movements silent, deliberate. And they didn't attack. Not yet. Likan-7 stood watching them. They surrounded him. One stepped closer and spoke, not with words, but directly into his mind. "You are the mistake. We are the correction. I am evolution. You are a deviation from the path. You are ancient machines. I am alive." And in that moment, 5 of them lunged. The battle was unlike anything before. This wasn't Xerxes. This wasn't humanity. These beings didn't feel pain. They didn't roar. They didn't bleed. Each strike, perfect, precise, efficient. They were executioners. They pierced him with spikes, tore at his flesh, ripped him apart, piece by piece. Likan-7 screamed in agony. For the first time in a long time, he fought back like a beast, tearing, slashing, but every time they rose again. One impaled him with a crystal harpoon, freezing his limbs. Another raised a bladed arm for the final blow, and then red light flooded the battlefield. The pack had arrived. Thousands of Likans rushed into the fray. This wasn't a battle. It was Judgment Day. The ground quaked. The horizon burned. The air was thick with adrenaline, with fear, with fury, with death. Meanwhile, deep beneath Greenland, in an abandoned mining complex, a surviving team of scientists uncovered a recording, dated 8 million years ago. In it, an alien dialect, barely translated by AI, declared, "Life on this planet is unstable. Werewolves are not a mutation. They are the first form. We suppressed them, but their code survived, hidden in mammalian DNA. They always return. When humanity reaches critical mass, the Lycan will be reborn, and with it, the end of reason. And with that revelation, everything became clear. Likan-7 wasn't a weapon. He was the instinct of the planet, the return to zero phase. Project Archetype was not the creation of life. It was the cage. And now, both forces were free. The battle at the South Pole became a massacre. Crystalline keepers sliced through the Lycans, leaving behind wounds that hissed and burned with acid. The Lycans tore into steel, ripping out organs that shouldn't exist. Likan-7, bleeding, still fought. But he no longer resembled a wolf. His body had become something primordial, a fusion of pulsing mass, bone, and metal. And then, it happened. The capsule he held shattered. A burst of light erupted from it. It rose into the air and began to absorb everything. It was his genetic origin, the purest code. But it no longer belonged to science. It had become a being. From it, a child emerged. Yes, a child, human in appearance, a boy, no more than 6, naked, trembling, but with the eyes of Likan-7. He looked over the battlefield and whispered, "I am the beginning. You are the mistake." And the world stood still. He stood in the center of the ruined bastion, the boy. At first glance, just a child, but in his eyes, no fear, no pain, no regret. He looked at Likan-7, wounded, deformed, barely standing, and then he spoke. "You are not a god. You are a mistake." Even those who were no longer human felt their hearts clench. The keepers froze. The Lycans stilled. Even the earth seemed to hold its breath. The boy took a step forward. Each of his movements carried unseen power. He made no sound, but the world listened only to him. "I am what came before you, before war, before all of this. I am the code. I am the beginning." Likan-7 raised his head. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with memory. "You were inside me?" "No." The boy shook his head. "You were inside me. I am the core. You are the shell. An evolutionary prototype, a purge protocol. But you failed." His words sliced into Likan-7 like a blade. He wasn't even himself. He was a container, a wall, meant to hold something else back. "You destroyed civilizations," the child continued. "You awakened a force meant only to be restrained. You let instinct take control." The boy closed his eyes, and in that instant, a blinding flash swept across the battlefield. The Lycans began to writhe. Their bodies dimmed. Blood froze. Flesh peeled from bone. They weren't dying. They were returning to code. Likan-7 dropped to his knees. His skin cracked. Light poured from within. "Wait," he gasped. "It's not over." The boy opened his eyes. They glowed like 2 burning stars. "You're right, it's not." He stepped closer, placed a hand on Lykan's chest, and then the transfer began. Light surged through Likan-7's body, and he saw everything. Millions of years ago, at the dawn of life, beings like him were created as autonomous instincts, systems to preserve balance, but one of them broke free. It evolved. It grew. It took on the form of a wolf, and it destroyed entire worlds. Likan-7 was not the first. He was the second, and the first was still asleep. At that moment, in the deserts of what once was Tibet, deep beneath the eternal frost, inside a capsule encased in amber resin, something moved. A colossal form, a wolf's skull carved with runes, a body the size of a mountain. Its eyes opened. 2 black orbs, devoid of mercy, devoid of thought, only hunger. The boy stepped away from Likan-7, and Likan rose, shaking. No longer a beast, no longer a man. He was a question. "You can still make it right," the boy said. "You were made to destroy. But now, you have a choice. You can become the shield, or remain the fangs. Likan looked down. In his chest, something still beat, something like a heart. What if I can't? The boy smiled, softly, sadly, humanly. Then we all disappear, and then, around the world, the signals went silent. Communications died, satellites fell, Earth paused, because in the air, a new sound emerged, deep, low, like thunder, but distorted. It was not a message, it was a roar, the first. He had awakened. For the first few seconds, no one understood. There was only silence, and the sky darkened. Not from clouds, not from ash, but from something far more terrifying. A shadow with no source, a whisper inside every mind. I existed before your code, before flesh, before fear itself. It wasn't a voice, it was a vibration older than language, older than blood, older than death. In the scorched valley where Bastion Zero once stood, Likan-7 raised his head. He heard the call. No, not a call, an order. He's coming, said the boy standing beside him. He won't destroy the world. He'll rewrite it. Can you stop him? Likan asked, his voice rough, nearing a growl. No, but you can. If you accept what remains. A pause. If you become the vessel of the first. On the other side of the planet, where a fragile illusion of civilization still clung to life, beneath the ruins of old London in the underground cities, where survivors still hid, the mutations began. It began with the children and the elders, even those who were never part of any experiment. Their bodies started to melt, to dissolve into something larger, a collective connection, code, pain, fear. They were no longer individuals. They were becoming a network, a nervous system, the eyes of the first. Dr. Claire Norton, miraculously alive beneath the rubble, opened her eyes inside a sterile evacuation capsule. Her body was broken, but her mind still fought. She heard a voice. You tried to control nature. I am nature. You tried to create a weapon. I am the war. In the sky, it appeared. Something enormous. A floating island of black, living stone, laced with tendrils, claws, bone. It had no eyes, no mouth, but a mind that enveloped the planet, the first. Likan-7 stood atop the hive. Beneath him, thousands of Likans. Around him, the keepers. Behind him, the boy, the code-born child. You all want victory, Likan growled, but you have no idea what you're facing. This isn't a creature. It's not a foe. It's the return of life's original master. So you'll submit? One of the keepers asked. You'll yield? Likan looked to the sky, to the shadow looming on the horizon. No, I'll become his vessel, to burn him from the inside. You'll die, the boy said. I'm not alive, Likan whispered, but if I'm to burn, I'll take all of hell with me. He stepped into the void, called the first. With his voice, his pain, his will, and the first answered. They met not in sky, not on land, but in the field of mind. Darkness, light, silence, millions of images, war, flame, bone, the birth of life. Screams. You don't belong to this world, Likan growled. You weren't made for it. I am its foundation. You're a mistake, a relic that forgot its place. I became free. Freedom is an illusion. I am the truth. And then, Likan stepped forward and accepted him. The world convulsed. Every living being felt it. Flesh boiled. Minds drowned in signal. The sky shattered. But then, silence. He stood in the middle of the field, naked, burned, alone. Likan-7, but his eyes were different. No beast, no first, only a man. He had contained him. He held the first inside. But for how long? In the first minutes, the world didn't understand what had changed. The sun still rose. The wind still pushed ash down broken roads. Survivors hid in ruins, waiting for death or for a miracle. But the sky began to crack. Like glass under pressure, the sky fractured. Then, the rifts appeared, tears in the fabric of reality itself. And from them came sounds that should not exist. A baby's cry, the roar of a dying star, the beating of a heart, human, but pulsing in the rhythm of a beast. In one of these rifts, a portal opened, and he emerged, Likan-7. But now, he was different. His body, human. His eyes, human. But behind them, silence. Dangerous, endless, a void. He stood in the center of a scorched plain, where Geneva once stood. Around him, ash and dust. Then, he spoke, softly, almost a whisper. I'm holding him, every second. But with every breath, he grows closer. From the shadows, the boy stepped forward, the code, the living fragment of truth. You can't hold him forever. You're not a vessel, you're human. No, Likan replied. I am what remains, after humanity. You'll lose yourself, maybe, but I'd rather vanish than let him consume everything. But the world was already collapsing. Time fractures began to spread. In one place, the past. Dinosaurs, primitive screams. In another, the future. A world without people, only dust. And a message carved into fallen stone. Stop him! One rift opened in the ocean. From it, a woman emerged, wearing a UN uniform. But her eyes glowed blue. Symbols crawled along her veins. She was from another timeline. One where Likan-7 had submitted to the first. One where the world was lost. I came to kill you, she said, while there's still time to save everything. He looked at her. No rage, no fear, only resolve. I won't let him out. You're already cracking, she said. You're not eternal. When you burn, he'll be free. Then I'll burn everything. With me. The hunt began. From across the timelines they came. Creatures, soldiers, distorted clones, even ancient keepers, reborn in new shells. All of them, gathering to destroy Likan-7 preemptively before his shell shattered. And each of them saw in him a threat. But he saw in each of them a piece of himself. The last stronghold stood on the edge of the temporal continuum, where day and night changed every few seconds. Likan stood at its peak, alone. Below him, an army, the code, humans, mutants, keepers, beings from fractured timelines, all of them, against him. He lifted his eyes, to the sky, to the sun. No longer yellow, it was black, and he said, I'm not a savior, I'm not a monster, I am the last door. And if I fail, you will all walk into hell. But if I hold, maybe we'll see the dawn. Silence, not even breath, not wind, not sound, not time, only him. Likan-7, standing alone within himself. Before him, a door, black, without a handle, no hinges, no frame, just there. Symbols ran across it, living, pulsing, as if the universe itself was trying to whisper the truth. Behind him, a voice. Open it, I'm no longer your enemy, I am you. He didn't turn around. He knew who it was, the first. A being without shape, without shell, without memory. Only one purpose. To melt everything, to absorb, to become one with all reality. You will not pass, Likan said. Quiet, but so certain, the fabric of space trembled. You can't hold me forever, the first whispered. I am eternal. You are not. You're cracking. I'm already inside you. I know. That's why I came here. He stepped toward the door, placed his hand upon it. The symbols ignited. The code entered him. Fire, light, darkness, pain. The lives of millions, the deaths of trillions. All in one blinding flash. And then he understood. To hold the first, he must not resist. He had to become one with him. Outside, the world was collapsing. The sky tore apart. The world turned black and white. Sound vanished. Birds fell from the sky. Clocks stopped. Children were born and aged to dust in seconds. Mountains vanished. Oceans boiled. The boy stood in the heart of the void and spoke. "He's almost there. Just a little more." "And if he doesn't make it?" asked the woman, the survivor from the far future. "If he burns out? Then everything ends. Even the question, why?" Inside his mind, Likan stood on the edge. The first was already part of him. They argued, they screamed, they fought. And then, silence. "Why do you fight?" asked the first. "You could be a god. You could rule all life." Likan closed his eyes and answered, "Because choice matters. Because being human is not blood, not bone. It's the will to become who you choose." And then he takes the final step, right into the heart, right into the core, where there is nothing, no light, no darkness, no time, no pain, only an idea. And he says, "I release you." Everything disappears. For a moment, nothing, no sound, no weight, no memory, no movement, only a pause. And then, dawn. The sun rises, a real sun, warm, golden. The grass sways gently, the ocean sparkles, and people live. Without fear, without war, without monsters. The legends remain, but the beast is no more. At the top of a hill stands a lone figure. No claws, no fangs, no rage, just a man. He looks to the horizon and smiles, softly, without pain. It is him, Likan-7, the one who was a beast, became a savior. And now, he is simply himself.